Hi guys, episode 6 of the season now, and we've only got 4 games left. For the last 2 weeks, we've had a pretty poor excuse for a game, and that's Wiping, released by Nichibatsu in 1982. I think those that chose it were hoping for a hidden gem, similar to the likes of Dig Dug or Mr. Do, but unfortunately a hidden gem this is not. They say you can't polish a turd, and unfortunately I can't wipe this from my memory. It's not that the game mechanic is that bad, but it's just a little too clunky to be really enjoyable. You have the ability to squirt the enemies to stun them, and in something like Dig Dug, you can spin round quickly and use that to escape. But here you are just too slow. It just doesn't feel tight enough. With it being a little more refined, it could be acceptable, but as it is, I don't ever want to play it again. So a bit of a shitty one here. Let's take a look at the scores and hope the next game can improve things. I've had 11 score submissions, which is all of our regulars. Mancave and Paul are at the bottom, with token efforts. Milthy is 9th, and I'm in 8th. Retro Arcade Challenge and Colin have done well for 7th and 6th, a chunk ahead of me and everyone else behind me. And Robert is on 5th with 74,000. 2nd to 4th are all very close, at just over 80,000. Bob is 4th, My Retro Tech 3rd, and then Blue Yak put a score in yesterday for an excellent 2nd place. Our winner this week though agreed it was a turd, and that was Graham. He's a chunk ahead at the top with a superb 96,000. Well done to Graham, and that's put him in a very solid position for the overall season win. Here is the score distribution, and it's a bit of an unusual one. We have our 4 lowest scores, myself included, on the left and in the middle, and then our top 7 all on the right in just 2 bins. Our top 4 are all in the top bin, so good efforts from all those guys. And with a bit more time, any of them could have actually taken the win. Next is the difficulty curve, and we can see the big steep increase on the left. This shows how it's quite doable to get up to around 65,000 for many of our players, but getting significantly beyond that is quite a challenge, and things increase fairly linearly up to Graham at the top. Finally, we have the progress over the 2 weeks. We can see quite a few people having multiple stabs at this, which usually is a good sign. But I'm not so sure here. Maybe you guys are just sadists. People have played at different times, but many have coalesced up at the top right, which is pretty interesting and unusual. That grouping is often much more in the middle, showing this game is a bit of a weird one. Before we find out our next game following this turd, let's take a look at the leaderboard. Not too much movement here. Robert has moved ahead of Paul, and I'm now 1 point ahead of Milthy. Up at the top, Colin has held 2nd spot, but the win for Graham has massively increased his lead. He's now over 100 points clear at the top and probably not going to be caught now. With that, let's take a look at our next game. I've had 9 games sent to me for the letter X. Not a huge number of choices here, so we've only got 5 unique games. X Multiply has 4 choices, ZexX has 2, and both Xevious and Xevious 3DG got votes as well. Graham chose X Multiply, so that has over 50% probability of coming up. So let's set things going and see what we get. Here we go, slowing down. Okay, it's going to be X Multiply. And in this case it was Paul's selection. X Multiply is a side-scrolling shoot 'em up, kind of a bit of an evolution from sort of an R-type formula. So yeah, I think it'll be a good one. So I'm going to go make a video and be back in a sec. So our next game is X Multiply, a horizontal shmup released by Irem in 1989, a couple of years after R-Type, and tries to build on that kind of concept. Here we have 2 flapping tentacles rather than the force pod, and the key is controlling them, moving as you move forwards and back. They act as a shield, a melee weapon, and a laser. The concept of the game is one where you're shrunk down, trying to attack alien invaders, and that reflects the kind of biological theme of the levels. A quick play, and it seems far from easy, and one you need to learn. We'll be using the Japanese M72 ROM, which is xmultiple m72.zip. The Japanese ROMs for shmups such as this are usually closest to what the designers had in mind, and there are numerous examples of games being ruined in the world release. I don't know in this case, but we'll be using the Japanese ROM to be safe. We've had a lot of classic arcade games this season, so a proper shmup is a good change. For our next game, please send me games beginning with the letter Y. there is an even more limited selection for this letter, possibly the worst in the alphabet. Yi Er Kung Fu is an obvious choice, but Yu Ji Uden is another less obvious option. So I hope you'll enjoy playing some X Multiply. It can't be any worse than wiping. And I'll be back in a couple of weeks with the scores. See you then.